Ohai. Galil, the city in Israel. Galil, it is located at the height from 430 to 573 meters above sea level in east part of the Nazareth Ridge, which forms northern border of the Israelski Valley in the Lower Galilee. In a northern part of the city Mount Haryona, 573 m. Towers. On the place of modern Galil, primitive tribes long since lodged. Archaeologists found burial which age exceeds 3,000 years in local caves. Primitive people were attracted here both by the fertile soils and surrounding the territory of the mountain, protecting them settlements from enemies. The known monument to antiquity is the ancient settlement Sulit. During archaeological investigation, clay oil lamps, several amphoras were found here. These finds are exposed in the mayor's office hall Natsretalita. Opposite to the residential district or John the settlement remains whose age is dated 8th century BB Dagat. Here once there was a Bible city of Gath-Hefer, the birthplace of the prophet Jonah. The city was plundered and disappeared after the Jewish revolt and destruction of the Second Temple. It is known that in the 18th century the Arab village of Mashhad was founded on this place. The grave of the prophet is in this village. At this busy intersection it is expensive to ancient history, and in 1953 the decision to build the Jewish city was made. In the beginning it was called Kiryat Natzrat. The word Kiryat in translation from Hebrew designates the town. The idea of creation of the Jewish city near the city of Nazareth and among the Arab villages belonged to the first Prime Minister, the Minister of Israel David Ben-Gurion. He considered that creation of the city will change a demographic situation in this region and will promote increase in the Jewish population in Galilee. There was also a political reason of creation of the Jewish outpost here. The historian Mr. Foreman considers that the result of local elections in 1954, when in Nazareth and other Arab settlements the victory was won by communists, was an immediate cause of making decision on creation of the new city in this place. And the leadership of Israel also made the decision to create the new city which will attract new inhabitants, creating an opportunity to change balance of political forces in the future. 2 years were required on coordination of the project, but also, the solution of construction here of the city caused rough protests from the Arab owners of land who appealed to the Supreme Court of Israel. In 1955 the Supreme Court made the decision on alienation of the earth under construction, and it began at the beginning of 1956. The Ministry of Defense of Israel directed city building. It was headed at the time by David Ben-Gurion. On March 16, 1956 the CEO of the Ministry of Defense of Israel Shimon Peres appointed the Major Mordecai Elon the chairman of the Commission on Development of Region of Natzrata. So then this construction was called. Further construction of Kiryat Natzrat demanded land. It became the reason for the Arab protests which brought in May 1958 disorders. During collisions of 30 people were wounded, and the police arrested many of protesters. The official ceremony where it was declared creation of the new Jewish settlement took place on November 29, 1956. For the settlement to the city it was necessary to have an interview in the special commission. Levi Olami, one of the first inhabitants Natzrat Alita, remembered. He had such interview successfully. He arrived in Israel from Romania in 1950. There were 18 years. I did military service Israel, then I lived in Haifa. At this time in Israel there was a movement from big cities to the village. And it went to live and work with the wife located near Tiberias. At the beginning of 1956 moves in Kiryat Natzret, works and is engaged in absorption of repatriates. He knew Yiddish, Hebrew and Romanian. Construction of many new settlements in Israel those years began with tents, wooden temporary barracks. And Kiryat Natzret began to build stone houses with all conveniences at once. The inhabited array located between streets Arbel and Golan and then Taver was the first stage of housing construction in the city. In the first years the industrial enterprises in the city weren't yet and newcomers were engaged in planting of trees, and many began to study on courses of the Solol Bona Company and received professions of builders. They first built up the residential district of Roscoe, then architects were given a design assignment of new areas. Also Ben Gurion Drummett, the former mayor Rialv remembered. From 1956 to 1960 1424 apartments, on average in 285 apartments a year were leased. In the history of the city there was a period that some time of the apartment there were not populated. And repatriates were met by the management of the city and at once handed keys from new apartments. After 6-day war aliyah to Israel increased and many new repatriates began to come in Kiryat Natzret. These years in Kiryat Natzret again active housing construction began. So, in 10 years from 1960 to 1970 more than 3,600 apartments were built. Also the number of inhabitants grew up. From 4,300 people in 1961 to 15,000 in 1972. In the first years of city building, creation of the industrial enterprises and workshops began. It is known that the factory, opened in 1958. Present Chocolate Factory and also Kitten Cotton Mill became the first large enterprise in the city. The plant on production of cause was one of the first enterprises of the city also. In 1958 the city received the name Natzretilit. In 1966 the municipal coat of arms was approved. The most important element is placed in the middle of the coat of arms. It is a flower, an iris, which grows in the city and vicinities. On both sides of a branch from the olive trees growing here. From above a tower and a crown, a symbol of the Jewish outpost in Galil, below a flower, the gear wheel and a brick lane symbolizing expansion of the city and existence of the industry. In 1974 the city was given the status of the city and the first elections of the mayor took place. He elected the chairman of the Commission on Creation of the City and the chairman of City Council, Mordecai Alon. In the early 90s in Natzretilit's development the new period began. He is connected with a rival to Big Elias city. The former head of Department of Absorption Natzretilit Roman Cates remembered. At the end of 1989 24,000 of population lived in Natzretilit. And at the end of 1989 in Natzretilit there arrived 207 families. 576 people. And in January, February 1990, more than 300 families, and until the end of the year, minus 1878 families. 5876 people. In 1991, 44 persons, and then till 1996, annually came to the city almost on 200 people. Everything according to R. Kates in Nazratilit there arrived about 29,000 people. Not all of them remained to live here, but the first months of absorption carried out in this city. This year's intensive housing construction in the areas of Zev began. Mario Lesnik. North Israel, Arioni. Thus, not small-sized apartments which were under construction in 60th, 70th, and big apartments of modern planning were built here, many of which had the protected room. These areas received good traffic intersections, schools, kindergartens, shops and cultural institutions. For married couples of a retirement age, 2 hostel on streets Golan and Israel, and also Dyer on Absagat Street and Mikbatsi on Urjan were constructed. For studying of Hebrew, 64 Alpana were open. Classes for studying of Hebrew. New repatriates joined ranks of employees of factory of Elite Strauss, Rear Electronics, TAS, Phoenician, Atakov, Tosiat Rikev, Melta, Amlet, Liparalate, Person, Selena, and several tens more small enterprises and workshops. Because many scientists, doctors and candidates of science lodged in the city, Scientific and Technical Association, which chairman elected the Doctor of Engineering Oleg Goroshin, was created. In the years of Bigaliah's arrival to Nazratilit, the first newspaper in Russian under R. Sivan's edition began to appear. In 2019, the city made the decision to be renamed in Nov HaGalil. Mayors of Nov HaGalilia. From 1974 to 1977, Mordecai Motki Alon. From 1977 to 2008, Menahem Ariov. From 2008 to 2016, Shimon Gafsu. Due to the attraction he twice to judicial responsibility of the acting mayor was executed Alex Godolkin and Nathaniel Tvito. Since 2016 until the present Ronan plot. According to the Central Statistical Bureau of Israel, the population for the beginning of 2020 made 41734 persons, including 69.7% Jewish, the others, natives of the CIS, Europe, Ethiopia, Morocco, Arabs, Muslims and Christians minus 24.5%, other nationalities. Age structure of the population. Children up to 10 years make 12.1%, at the age of 10, 19 years minus 13.3%, at the age of 20, 44, 42.5%, at the age of 45, 64, 37.9%, at the age of 64 and are more senior minus 16.9%. As of 2010, the number of busy workers in all spheres was, a number self-employed minus 7248. The average monthly salary in 2010 was 5808 shekels. The average salary in Israel minus 7522 shekels. 558 people, from them 273 men. Average age of 46 years. Or the unemployed. Pensions and benefits on an old age were received by 7424 persons, and social benefits minus 3416 people. In Nov HaGalil there are whole streets of standard houses. However, there are also original buildings. Natsratalita, court of the northern district, treats them buildings of the central synagogue of the city, the mayor's office, the center of absorption of the Jewish agency Dry. The last building, according to authoritative jury of the famous Israeli architects, was among 20. Took the 11th place. The most beautiful and original buildings of the country. Galil is the center of the industry, trade and services for many neighboring settlements. The industry takes a central place in structure of city economy. About a half all working in the city are engaged in the industry. In the city 5 industrial zones. Aleph, Beth, Gimel, Ojan, and Saiporit, in whom about 100 various enterprises are located. In the Saiporit industrial zone, in more than 30 enterprises, more than 3,800 people work. Residents can use services of Apollon Bank, Discount, Lumi, Mizrachi Faket, Yaakov. Offices of mail-in areas work. Roscoe, Urjan, Dramit, Canyon, North Israel. Medical care. Polyclinics of 4 health insurance funds work. Philalet, Maccabi, Moifedit and Luyimit. In the city there is no hospital, but in the next Nazareth the Italian, French and English hospitals are located. If necessary, patients can receive medical care in the neighboring city of Afuel in the medical center Haimek. In the city the station of emergency medical service, Magen David Adam, works. The city organizations of parties work. Likud, Our House Israel, Israeli Labor Party, Kulana and Jewish Home. In 1975, one of the first in Israel, the veteran organization of fighters is created Minds Nazism in World War II. Chairman Lev Lapidus. The Committee of Disabled People of World War II works. Chairman Pietiks. The City Office of Society, Refugees of the Holocaust. Evacuated in the years of World War II. Chairman Semyon Vernovsky. Is created. A lot of work in the city is carried out by associations Russia, Asia, Belarus, Ukraine, Moldova and other former federal republics of the USSR, Romania, Poland, Latin America, etc. In each residential district there are several synagogues. The Central City Synagogue is constructed in 1961. The Chorachim Center, city branch of the Tzor organization, which helps Russian-speaking citizens with the procedure of confirmation of Jewry in Ravanatsky court works. Education. In Galil 12 schools, including 6 elementary schools and 4 high schools. 2 gymnasiums. Tacona. In 2011, in 196 classes, more than 4,500 pupils studied. Average of pupils in classes 21 pupils. In the city also the network preschool city institutions. 16 kindergartens. Is widely developed and therefore here it is possible to suit freely children in kindergartens. In Natsratilite since 1987 the college of a name of the first mayor Mordecai Motki Alon works. In college it is possible will receive degree of the practical engineer. Practical engineer. On specialties. Architecture, internal and landscaping. Mechanics. Specialization, computer design. Mechanics. Specialization, cars. Mechatronics. Industry and management. Programming. Electronics. Specialization, microcomputers. Electricity. Does someone have no certificate about secondary education or want to refresh the knowledge, can complete the year preparatory course including Hebrew, English and mathematics. In college there is an opportunity to improve the skills and to end courses in the various technological directions. Computer drawing. AutoCAD, SolidWorks. Computer graphics. Photoshop, freehand. Accounts department. Secretaries and others. Culture. The network of 8 recreation centers and the concert hall, Eshkol Ha-Pays, is opened and functions. The oldest of them is the Berkovich Recreation Center. In him there are held theatrical performances from the best theaters of the country, concerts of variety actors of Israel and other countries, performances, actions in different languages for children. Recreation centers. Bagno is located in the residential district Ben Gurion, the Gordon Center in the residential district Ramat, Merkaz Tzairi. The Youth Center is in the northern part of the city, Kramim in the residential district Kramim. He carries out work generally in Arabic. A name of one. Kareem works in the residential district Rajan. The city choir, Atikva, under the leadership of Rosalia Kupperman and the leader Irina Vishnevskaya works. Amateur theaters work. Zenit in Spanish, Galil, under the leadership of Boris Rabkin and Levan Art Studio in Russian and theatrical group in Hebrew. Since 2012 in Nov HaGalil the International Festival of the Russian Poetry and Art, David's Harp, is held. Founders and organizers of the festival, Lyudmila and Mikhail Chebataryev. In 4 years of existence of a festival more than 200 poets, translators, artists and musicians took part in him. For example, in 2015 poets, artists and musicians from 17 countries of the world sent the works to a festival. At art exhibitions it is possible to see pictures of local artists, members of the Union of Artists of Israel. Yosef Reznikov, Oleg Sherd, Alexander Yalev, Daria Lobkovskaya. The Literary Association, Galil, worked it issued. There were 10 numbers. The Galil magazine, which editor-in-chief was the writer Markazov. Now Literary Association of Writers of the City is called by his name. Members of the Writers' Union of Israel were its part. Boris Iskin, winner of an award of a name of the poet D. Samolev, Yuri Polygonkin, Vladimir Itkinson, Mikhail Bryman, Nina Echmaneva, Stella Podlebnaya, Inna Kostyakowskaya and others. Maria Wojtakova, the author of 5 books, the member of the Writers' Union of Israel, the editor-in-chief of the Podnebim Galil magazine, directs Literary Association. The City Central Library at Berkovich Recreation Center works, taking into account 3 branches. The library stock contains it about 150,000 books, and more than 12,000 residents use library. In library there are sections with the wide range of books for children, youth and adults in Hebrew, the Spanish, Russian and English languages, reference books and magazines. Persons interested can read literature and the periodical press in the internet class which works at library. Press. The Index newspaper in Russian. It is published since 1994. 2 newspapers in Hebrew, Avda and Galil Index Ha. On the internet there are several city websites which inform on everything that occurs in the city. Museum of Accident and Heroism of the Jewish People. The Lee's Poison We Band Center devoted to memory of those someone died protecting Israel. Sport. The city soccer team Hapoel plays in League Blue Unit. In the city there is also basketball team Hapoel Nof Hagal. The football stadium of One Green which can accommodate nearly 4,500 viewers, tennis courts, dozens of sports playgrounds under the open sky works, country, with the swimming pool and gyms. The city outdoor pool is near Clubs Country and in the Plaza Hotel, and in Berkovich Recreation Center after capital repairs the covered Amitkam Center with the big indoor pool and sports circles works. Tourism. More than a third of the territory Nof Hagalilia occupy green plantings. He attracts a large number of tourists not only from Israel, but from other countries of the world. The source is in specified 1459 days. In the city several travel agency and excursions works. For tourists conditions for pleasant rest and entertainments are created. From survey platforms of the city the view of the Israelski Valley, Mount Tabor and the Lower Galilee opens. In the city and in the neighborhood of the city it is possible to make excursions to ancient Nazareth, National Park of Tzipori, Mount Tabor. There is a Plaza Hotel. 184 numbers, including 6 suites, the pool, a jacuzzi, training and banquet halls. In the city a wide choice of restaurants and cafe. For new repatriates there is one of projects of Department of Absorption of Municipality, the University on Wheels. Het Semyon Shenderav. He allows to study the history of Israel not in educational audiences, and during the excursions over the country. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.